All right, everybody. Welcome back to Uplift Lifestyle Podcast. I am sitting here today with Joel and Rory, and this is a very unique, I feel like this is very unique for my audience, to have two men in the room for this conversation. And I'm excited about that. We've developed like personal relationships over the last year-ish, and I think what each of you are doing in your own unique way is going to bring a lot of value to everyone listening today. So welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So I want to kick off with, I want my audience to get to know you guys, but not in like a basic way. Like, oh, here's what I do for work. Like with a more holistic perspective. So like, Rory, let's start with you. What's your vibe? Who are you? What are you about? Like, what's 2025 about for you? What do you do for work? What do you do for fun? Give us a little riff.
We work retail, but we keep the brand off air. That's just always going to be.
Okay.
Podcast for 8 years. 2025 is all about domination.
Okay.
Domination and monetization for the podcast.
Oh, I
the
love
Mitchell Report and Leash podcast, that is.
And it's so good.
Yes.
Rory had me on his podcast, I guess, a couple months ago, and it was just amazing.
It was great.
Domination. Okay, see, we're coming in hot with some masculine energy. So, like, what does that even mean for you?
It means just take over.
Take
no matter
over.
what, by any means necessary.
Okay.
Nothing can stand in your way.
I love that.
Like, we can get sick. We have family things. We have work things. But you got to keep showing up for what you want to show up for.
I love
each
that.
and every day.
Beautiful. Pure
365.
devotion.
So what does that mean in the podcast space, though? Like
Every
when you say
week.
domination. Oh, so what you mean by domination is consistency?
Consistency, yeah.
Yeah.
And
See, that's why you're here to fill
consistency?
the.
Yeah.
He's here to fill that in, fill the blanks in there.
So
yeah.
is consistency, like, for you, is that showing up weekly? Is that showing up in a different way? Like, I'm all about, and my audience knows this, it's like consistency with standards, right? So it's not just showing up on the podcast. It's how are you being consistent, but elevating that standard of consistency?
Well, also too, if you peel the layers back, it's by knowing your boundaries and your non-negotiables.
Okay.
Right?
I love
and
that.
like those things that are your non-negotiables as far as how you show up for family, friends, right? And how people interact with you as well too. Because you know, there's magnitude of distractions and stuff like that, right?
And I think of you as someone who's super present. And I think that that's like it's a soft skill that it translates into huge success. And I feel like you're hyper present. So is that an example of like, that's something that's just a non-negotiable for you? You know that if you show up for a conversation, for an interview on your podcast, you're going to be present. Is that like an example of?
Absolutely. And this
Okay.
is different for me because I'm always like the host.
I know,
And
I
get
like
to
this.
sit back and I relax and I kind of just ebbs and flows with how things
Well,
are
you
going.
can still relax here.
Of course, of
we're all
course.
about that.
But I think for Rory in the space where it's really like personal branding, it's a competitive advantage to be uber present, right? You think of the best podcaster in the world. Everybody probably thinks Joe Rogan, right? That's the name that pops up just because of how successful that podcast has been. But one of the things that he does so well and that Rory does really well is he's locked into whoever's sitting across from him. If you're on the other side of the phone with Rory, you just know that he's locked into the conversation. He's not distracted by his phone. He's not distracted by other things going on around him. And I do think as someone with a personal brand, that is uber important and a competitive advantage, especially in a world of so many distractions.
Yeah.
And that means a
Right
lot.
now, right?
That means a lot, straight up.
Yeah.
I love this.
means a lot.
We're
Thank
going to
you.
do the same for you, Joel. We're going to hype you up. But
we got to.
I want to stay
We're
on
pumping
Rory
new
for a
tires. We're
little.
pumping new
I want to
tires.
stay here a little bit longer with this. Another thing that I think you do really well, and not everyone does this naturally, is you network really well. And you do too, Joel. But speaking to you, Rory, like for everyone listening, there's a lot of creators and entrepreneurs in this space. You've been able to position yourself as someone who has had conversations with some big leading experts and industry leaders. And how, like, I know that it's like a swagger, it's a vibe, and it's just who you are. But are there any strategies behind being someone that people trust, being someone that people say, yeah, I'll come on your show, even if they have already a huge influence?
Great question. It's just about not having a conservative mind is one, and two, you can't have a fixed mindset. You have to have a growth mindset, and you got to know how to approach things from an ability of just being who you are and how you're going to show up, right? So connection with you is one thing. Connection with Joel is another thing, right? So how that is just showing up and just being authentic within yourself. That's it. No beans about it. I can always identify when you have certain personalities that are just about self. In this space, you can't be about self. It takes collaboration. It takes your community to get to where you need to get to.
I think there's this like, I don't know if it's just a saying from my generation, but real recognize real. So for me, I can really tell right away if it is somebody that's authentic and approaching a conversation with me, not with some kind of ulterior motive, but just because, hey, you know, I really see the value in collaborating, right? So I think that's something in the networking space. As you collaborate, I choose who I want to collaborate with, right? I won't just collaborate with someone just because they have a big name tied behind them. I'll collaborate with someone if I'm like, hey, this is a real person, and you know, I think we can probably mutually help each other, but that's not the reason for the conversation.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
100%. Okay, this kind of leads me to even just, I was reflecting on my drive down here to the studio, like the interesting thing about the three of us sitting here together is we're all very different. Like we are very different people. But the reason I believe, and it kind of piggybacks off what we were just talking about, you and your hyper presence, and you're also, like you said, not having a fixed mindset, but a growth mindset. We're able to be authentically ourselves and very empowered in who we are and how we want to live, while also honoring and recognizing other people's truths. Like there's not one absolute truth. There are these, it's like that respect level of, okay, I know who I am, Rory knows who he is, Joel knows who he is, and we can all sit here and have a reciprocal, high vibrational, loving, empowering conversation that has a huge ripple effect and impact without needing to all agree on everything.
Yeah, I think open-mindedness is kind of what you're honing in on, right? And especially in today's day and age, there's this tendency to want to be polarized on topics, right? To say, hey, this is my belief, or this is the way that, this is my worldview, this is my go-to-business strategy or whatever, and this is the best way. Well, it's like, well, yeah, that might be the best way for you. Yeah. But there's other ways that exist. And I think it's okay to approach every conversation, and you absolutely should be, understanding that you might change your mind by the end of it. So I go into every interaction like this one, I might have my mindset about, hey, this is the best way to do social media marketing. And then after this conversation, I'm okay with the fact that I might be convinced otherwise, right? So you have to go into all of your interactions that way, and that's how you grow as a human being and as an entrepreneur, is going into those interactions knowing that you're going to change.
Yeah, 100%. I always say, and I say this a lot to people I'm with, I just say, what's your vibe right now? Because I'm committed to constant evolution, and I hold other people to that standard, and I'm not ever going to place somebody in a box because that's who they were last month or a week ago even, or last year, right? So I know we've evolved and grown so much since we've seen each other last, and that's why I'm pumped about this conversation.
Yeah.
So what's your vibe then?
I was gonna say, Rory's thinking of something over there.
I'm always, come on now.
Yeah, my vibe right now is, again, it is changing every single day. Like at the beginning of 2025, it was like soft, slow, clear. I was all about taking very little action, but the action I was taking was extremely precise. And that was that clarity. The softness was, I really needed to lean back and be in more of a receptive energy. Even though I'm a woman, my masculine energy is really strong. I get a lot of shit done, and I'm not afraid of hard work, and I like hard work, and I like that feeling of accomplishing things, but there was disharmony there, and I needed to step into that softness. So I feel like for like a week and a half at the beginning of the year, I was like so into soft, slow, clear, that by like that second week in January, I was like, all right, let's fucking go. Like I have this surge of energy. I have this new energy expenditure that I'm ready to use on these things. So fast forward to now, like I got back from vacation yesterday, and then I was on another vacation a couple weeks before. I've been kind of in a vibe of like all the way on or all the way off. So that's my vibe right now, of not doing things in half in, half out energy. And this is, again, one of those, this isn't the only way or the best way, because I've had great success being kind of half on, half off, like traveling and working at the same time, vacationing and working at the same time. Where now for me, it's like, I'm going to be all the way off, where I'm not thinking about work. I'm not constantly thinking about self-development. I'm not constantly attuning my mindset. I'm actually like being a human and chilling the fuck out. And then when I am on and I am in an environment where it's required for me to be so dialed and so focused, I'm on, all the way on. So that's kind of my vibe right now. It's like all the way on or all the way off. And that could be very different by the time this episode comes out. I'll say that.
I love that.
True.
Okay, let's get over here to Joel. So
Here we go.
what is your, well, and we didn't get too much about what you do, Rory. We're going to come back to that. But what's your vibe right now? And who are you in the world from a holistic perspective?
Yeah, it's a really big question. I'm going to start with the kind of first piece of it because that's where my brain is right now. So this year for me personally, it's about personal and process optimization. So as I would say a relatively new entrepreneur trying to balance a ton of things, I also found myself in like a big period of unbalance, which is okay. I think you need to be in certain stages in your life. And when you're starting out, it's kind of, that's the way it is. But I realized that my physical health was kind of being put in last place of everything else. So this year was very much a, hey, if you don't protect your temple, then, you know, everything else will not follow. So that was important to me this year. And then process optimization is just about, there's so many businesses and different ventures I'm working on. What I've realized is you can only start to scale them efficiently if you've got really tight processes in place. So I'm really good at like kind of go and like, let's build this out. But you can only take that so far without having good processes. So that's a big focus this year.
When you say real quick about your temple, are you speaking like more like mindset and rest, or are you speaking more about just the ebbs and flows of like the daily 9 to 5, managing family, thing like that?
I think it's all of the above. So mental health, physical health, relationship health. And when I say relationship, I mean relationship with your family, your friends, and your spouse or your significant other. So for me, it was, you know, making sure that I'm making time to prioritize the things that I do value in my life. You know, I wasn't working out as much as I should have. So it was like incremental gains, right? You don't have to go and do a 2-hour workout every day. Go down and do your 20 minutes, right? Do those little things every single day. That's going to have a positive impact on all those different facets of your life that you value.
Yeah.
And I did find that I was kind of certain things I was just ignoring. And then I would like feel bad about it, or start feeling like the ill effects of it. Right.
Yeah.
Like I just, last year was like the oldest I've ever felt. I was like, oh my God, I feel old. Yeah. Right. I was like, I'm like, I need to start working out. I need to like, I need to meditate. I need to do something. Yeah. Right. So you just get to that point where you're just like, hey, something's got to give. Right.
I want to celebrate you and honor you because I think it takes courage to be like, yeah, I'm this masculine man and I was out of harmony and I needed to make a change like that. Like I know I have like, I think 5% male listeners, the rest are women, but I think that for anyone listening to that, it's inspiring to hear like, and see, if you're watching on YouTube, a physical man who looks manly, who looks masculine. You have a wife, you have a kid, you have a business, you work in corporate, like you're doing a lot and you're maintaining and managing a lot. And you're willing to be like, yeah, this was out of whack. This was out of balance and I'm making a shift. So yeah, good for you.
Yeah. And then in terms of kind of who I am and what I do, you alluded to it, I spent 20 years in the corporate world, still there, still have a foot in the corporate world. But I realized 3 or so years ago that, hey, my passion is really in the entrepreneurial game. So kind of dipped my toe into entrepreneurship in the entertainment and events world. And that kind of ballooned into 5 or 6 different ventures that we're currently on. So, now own part of Forest Brewery here in town, a local brewery. I've got the podcast with Paul, which has turned into Industry Night Productions, where we run an event for entrepreneurs and local events. So it's kind of taken a life of its own in terms of what I'm working on, but it's definitely what makes me the happiest, is kind of doing all these things, even though like sometimes it feels like there's a million things going on. At the end of the day, like I'm kind of like happy with that, right? So, and
that's what I would want the audience to really take in, is that happiness when it comes to entrepreneurship. I think some folks are happy because they work a 9 to 5 and they go home and then they do the dinner thing and then they watch Netflix and then Amazon Prime or whatever, and that's their happy space. But what I want your audience to even take a really look at is, we're not saying you have to be a successful entrepreneur to be happy. but have a direction of what it is when you want to see what happiness looks like.
Yeah, one of the things that's like kind of unspoken and is rarely talked about is you will get on your friends' nerves if you decide to make a jump into entrepreneurship later in life like I did. It's your passion, right? So that's all you want to talk about. You're going to want to talk about everything that's going on in that space or whatever, right? And your friends are going to get annoyed with you, and you might lose some friends, right? Unless your friends are entrepreneurs. So what I have found has happened organically has been the people that I spend the most amount of time with are the people that want to talk about that same stuff with me. So like me and Paul can sit there and talk for hours, and I'm sure just like you and I, right? Because we're all in the same game, right? But when you have that person that wants to just do the Netflix thing and like do their 9 to 5, it's okay. Like I'm absolutely I love that for them. But I also realize that I can be a pain in the ass to those people.
But they can't relate though.
They can't relate, right? They're yeah, exactly.
And it can infringe a little bit on those personalized relationships.
Sure.
Like dating.
I'm sure that's a big thing. We can talk. I want to talk to you about that.
Let's get into it.
You must be in the dating game right now. Are you single?
Here we go. Oh boy. Am I single? Jesus.
Well, because
at the moment I am.
Okay, so.
But I'm married to the game, married to the craft of the podcast.
Yeah.
It's my baby.
Of course, 100%.
8 years old.
We'll get into relationships in a minute here, but with this, the kind of what you're just describing about and I want to hype Joel a little bit more. He has these amazing, like the entrepreneurial journey you've taken. And with the podcast, with the events, I was lucky enough to be a guest speaker at your very first Fail Fast event. Just everything you're bringing together in the local community, but also having that global reach with the podcast and YouTube. It's super incredible that you're doing that at the same time in your corporate career.
I'm giving you a round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
That's applaud. But real quick on that friend thing, and we can riff on this a little bit more because I think that a lot of people listening, there's a lot of people listening right now that are in that in between. They're so ready to go all in on their business, on their career, their dream career, whatever entrepreneurial journey they're on or creative journey. Like they're so ready to go all in, but they're human like us, and they have there's many factors. There's people in your life that you love, but they just don't get it. And then you start to see that as validation of, okay, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not being fully supported. I want to vulnerably say it took years before the people in my close proximity, family and friends, like my oldest friends, my oldest family that I consider close friends, it took them years before they really understood, oh, she's pretty successful at this. She's good at what she does. Mm-hmm. It was people, like you said, new friends, business friends, entrepreneurial friends. They're the ones who are going to hype you and get it. It doesn't mean, and I write about this a lot in my book, it doesn't mean you can't still have incredible relationships with those friends and family. It's basically just an opportunity for you to reclaim power and an opportunity for you to empower yourself and actually be your biggest fan and not need them to hype you, because they're not going to hype you because they don't get it and they don't need to. Yeah. Just like we don't get their lifestyle. Yeah.
And I think it's also having self-awareness of who your audience is, right? So we went to the Our Lady of Peace concert a couple nights ago, and phenomenal concert, really good. And I went with, a bunch of buddies that some of them own their own business, but we kind of knew, hey, we're not talking about business tonight. We're just going out, we're having a couple of drinks, we're talking about anything and everything, but not business, right? And I'm okay with that, right? Could I have said that maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, when I was, and I'm still in the thick of it, but when it was I was just so that's all I want to talk about, because I can talk about what we're talking about all day long, right? 100%. So you kind of have to have a little bit of that mindset shift where you're like, okay, I'm going to be hanging out with someone that maybe doesn't want to talk about it.
100%. Mm-hmm. And exactly to that point, and that's where I said that all the way on, all the way off thing, because there was a point, there was a season, and I want to elaborate that was a necessary season, just like I think it was necessary for you, and I'm sure it's necessary for you, when you are, like you said, you're all in that energy. You don't want, that's a natural drive and passion. Don't put a cap on that. So if you need to, lose and clear some people out of your life for that season to really build, do that. They're going to come back around if they're meant to. And then you'll get to a point where you're like, you know what, we can still vibe and we can still talk about normal things, but I don't want to spend 5 days of the week with you.
And that's how it's got to be.
Cool.
That's how it's got to be.
Yeah.
You know?
I got a question for Rory, if you don't
Yeah,
mind me asking.
yes.
What's up?
Yeah. So we talked about like, hey, what's motivating you in this moment,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is super relevant. But when you zoom out, I would imagine that you have a pretty defined long-term vision of this is why I'm doing this. So what is your raison d'être? Like, why are you kind of in this game, and what's kind of the long-term game?
To help people, right? And I feel like a lot of folks don't know this. It's like, it goes back to my grandfather. He's no longer here. That's what he was all about, helping people, bring them underneath his wing, right? Doesn't matter if it's like one person or two people, but it's like, my motto is 1% better.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
who's going to end up coming with you on the journey,
Right.
Being a Pisces, if you look at fish are in the sea. What do they normally do? They're all together. They never separate. So it's like, get that collective group of mindsets that want it.
Unless you're a shark.
Bring the shark. Bring the shark all you want. You think I'm afraid of sharks? I don't go in water. Eh?
No, I was saying unless you're the shark.
It depends. Some folks, you gotta just do the Jaws thing on them.
I love your question, and I love, Rory, that you're someone who, what was your word again? It was dominate, right?
Yeah.
You're here saying my vibe right now is dominating, and your mission is this beautiful oneness perspective of uplifting and bringing people with you. And I fucking love this
But
because
peel the layers back though a little bit, because when I say
peel it
dominate,
back.
it's not dominate to mess people over along the way. It's dominate in your own respective realm.
And that's 100%. And
You see what I'm
that's
saying?
what I want to speak to is, and that's where I think people who are so focused like we are do get misunderstood. And I talk about this a lot in my book. You will be very misunderstood and you will not be easily defined, because to hold such a strong vision and to carry out a daily mission where you're uplifting people and bringing people with you 1% better. And it's this very like heart-led driven mission, but the level of focus, like dominating in that, is so necessary. And I think that's why people who do make it to levels of fame or levels of impact, they're so misunderstood because they're assumed to be selfish. And I love the word selfish. I'm selfish. I think we're all selfish. I think being selfish is amazing because it means you're honoring yourself, and it's that individuation to oneness. People don't realize that being selfish is actually a gift to all people. So they're putting a negative connotation on selfishness. So if someone sits here and goes and listening and they're like, oh, he's just wants to dominate in this space, but they don't continue listening what your mission and vision is for that, it's very easy to just go, oh, he's selfish. So share more about.
So this is the
that
thing.
contrast.
It's the perspective, right? Some folks will listen to you talk. Could be on a podcast. They see you out. You get these labels of like, oh, condescending, cocky. Oh, you thinks he's a know-it-all and all that, but you don't really have the inner connection with self to ask the right questions. So I always say is this in life: what you got to do is look at the person. If you don't understand, ask the right questions. Because you know how many times we hear people like, oh, I have a stupid question to ask. There's no such thing as a stupid question. It could be that question could break into so many different things. I know who Haley, I know who Joel is just by asking that one transformational question. Not transactional, but transformational question that could basically have an ongoing friendship.
Yeah.
Could be a business partnership. Could be a collaboration. Could be a podcast.
Yeah.
You see how everything is now ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Everything comes
Yes.
full circle.
for sure.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like this topic of domination because it's kind of interesting. If you were kind of an outsider looking in, what we did in the event space, the mobile bar space is a very, very niche industry, and that's the industry I'm in. When I came into the industry in southwestern Ontario, there was only 4 or 5 players in the space. So I made it a goal to basically eliminate the competition. And that sounds like really like ruthless and like I am a shark. And you have to be to a certain extent. But the way that I went about it was, if I'm going to swallow up a competitor, I'm going to try to integrate them somehow. So for instance, one of my competitors, the person that owned that business before is now my full-time events manager, Jenna, shout out. And then I merged with another company called Tap Truck, and Conrad's now a co-owner in the business.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it was, yes, we've consolidated the market in London, where we're really, if you want mobile bar services in London, we're basically the only option. There's a few others, but we're, I would say, the premier option.
Yeah.
And we did that deliberately, but we also created a space where people could kind of be a part of the journey and the collective mission that we're kind of creating with our business, right?
I love that.
And like our motto is have fun and entertain. So like, if you're going to be a part of our events, you're going to be a part of what we do, we're going to have fun and we're going to make sure other people are having fun.
I love it.
And we're going to build a great business while we're doing it, right?
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I really want to riff a little bit on this conversation around when you said like asking the right questions, and let's talk relationships. And I was kind of joking. We don't need to get into your personal. We're not going to get into your personal relationship.
You're in my wheelhouse right now. Let's go.
That's it. I want to talk relationships. So both of you in your own ways have developed such amazing relationships that we're sitting here today, right? We all kind of met in random ways. Well, we met at the event that I guest spoke at that they had run, the Fail Fast. And here we are months later, it's all happening. You run these events with your collaborators. You have the podcast. You have a relationship, ongoing relationship with all of these business owners. I want to talk to both of you and both just kind of speak up at any point. And then Rory, you've got obviously all these collaborators coming on your podcast. Relationships are obviously at the core of that. And we've already spoken about presence. We've already spoken about asking questions and listening. What other pillars of cultivating and maintaining relationships are important to speak about? Because that is the pinnacle of any growth, is this organic relationship building.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this great saying out there in entrepreneurship, which it sounds corny, but it's absolutely the truth, is your network is your net worth. So,
100%.
I would say put that on a poster if you're getting into the entrepreneurship game, because that is absolutely what's going to pave the way to you doing anything successful. But I also think it's always be trying to add value versus get value.
Yes.
I think if you add value into any interaction, any relationship that you have, an event that we're putting on, we're always trying to add value. The value will then come back to you tenfold.
Yeah.
If you don't go in, but if you go into the interaction being like, what can I get out of this? Then maybe it's not going to go so hot for you, right? So it's about what can I add to this person's life, to this interaction, to this phone call, and that's hard to do. It's hard to put yourself in that mindset of, hey, I want to be in a giving mindset, as opposed to, that receiving mindset all the time, right? So
to build off of that, it's the simple, easiest thing that we all miss, and then not but anyone here, is knowing how to communicate.
Yeah.
Just communicate, right? So I'll say it like this. You go into podcasting, could be a virtual conversation, and say you have a date, you have a time set up, but that said person doesn't show up, and they know it's the time because you put it in the Google Calendar, you see the check mark, you see all of this, but you still no-show. It tells me that you don't know how to communicate, right? And if you don't know how to communicate, how am I going to build trust? And instantly I go to my trigger point is, okay, you don't know how to communicate, we're done. And I know a lot of folks will say is you can't necessarily do that. You don't know what happened in their life. Here's the thing is, when we go to work, we can't show up 10 minutes late because what our boss is going to say? Why are you late? You got to explain a lot of things. So it's like, if you know you cannot fulfill certain obligations or tasks or relationships, just be open and honest and say, hey, listen, I can't make it because of this or that. Could be in a car accident, whatever. It could be something of that nature, but just show up. You know what I mean? Yep. We all get late. It happens. You've been late.
I was late today.
I've been late. It happens.
Unacceptable.
No, but it happens.
We've lost all trust.
It happens. But you know what you did? You messaged the group chat. Hey, listen, I'm about this many minutes away. And there's just some folks that don't know how to communicate, right? You send out emails, they communicate with you, and then the conversation drops off. Then you're like, well, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I used to take it personally, but now I'm just like, all right, cool, whatever. As you build, as you grow, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you this right now. They'll all come back. Everybody comes back. That's just how it is. They're like, oh, can I come on your podcast?
It's like Drake's song,
now?
How About Now?
How about
that one
now?
gets personal.
Listen.
Gets personal.
It just happens. And I don't want to come in like fired up because I think some people get triggered even by that. It's like, is he talking about me? Yeah, I'm talking about you. Just have the conversation.
Yeah.
No, but
This one's
seriously,
about
you got to
Communication.
have the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
I want to speak to honest communication. That's been what's my vibe right now. 2025 has been the year that I have had to have the most vulnerable, honest conversations with people in my life. And
It's great.
it's been so good. It's been, and I speak a lot about quantum leaping. And for anyone who's listening, well, actually, we're on my podcast. Everyone knows what quantum leaping is. Okay. So for quantum leaping, or like jumping into your new timeline, goal achievement on a next level, the quantum leaping comes from, like, some people will call it an ego death, but it basically comes from actually getting to the highest truth. And there's so much bullshit in the way when we are having surface level conversations. And that's back to what I said when we started this conversation. We can all vibe really well because we're just speaking our truths, and we're able to resonate, add value, give service, and receive with a reciprocal relationship because we're speaking from that highest truth. 2025, I have had way more conversations where I'm like brought to my knees. I'm emotional. I'm vulnerable. I feel like my heart is open and my nerves are exposed because I'm being so honest. But on the other side of that, it's like a very uncomfortable, maybe like 10, 20 minutes, whatever you'd want to say in that time, in that conversation. But on the other side of it, it is like immense freedom and huge quantum leaping in terms of literal physical results, but truly just how I feel. And then that the residual impact after, it's so powerful, and it comes from that foundation of honest communication. And you can go so much further in your life and experience so much more when you're not afraid of that raw communication. And that's that presence. That's that, like you said, that honest communication. It's showing up, planting the seeds. It's your network. So let's keep riffing on this because you guys master this.
Yeah. So like, here's the thing that I think people need to know. I've been around enough people in my life that it's very clear when they're putting on like a front, or they're really, really watching what they say, or they are approaching like maybe a communication with you differently than they would approach it with me. What I would say to you is people can see through that really quickly, right? And people, I would say high performers really, really are almost trained. They have a trained eye to like identify that and be like, this is almost removing trust from the situation because I can tell that there's a layer here that you've added that isn't an authentic you. So it comes across very disingenuous. So what I would say is don't do it, right? Like embrace who you are, all of the prickly parts and everything, right? Like I know that I rub people the wrong way sometimes, right? I'm a big personality. I can say things that, you know, maybe are a little bit offside sometimes, but I embrace that as who I am. And it's not like a big fuck you to the world. Like, hey, either you love me or you hate me. I just kind of, I'm not going to sugarcoat what I do and who I am at the expense of me.
Good.
Right. So I think that's important for people to know that others will expect you to just embrace your authentic self. And I haven't met one other entrepreneur that when we talk, oh, we love it when people are super fake and sugarcoated. No, we fucking hate it. That's our pet peeve, right? Because we know we can't have a relationship with you.
Well, the successful entrepreneurs or anyone, a famous creator, they didn't get to where they are by being fake. They got there by being fully authentic. They got there by fully witnessing themselves and allowing people to witness them in their full authenticity. So anything but that, it's like we're allergic to it. We can't.
Well, and here's the crazy part. I'm still in the corporate world. And I'm this person saying this. To live in the corporate world and to be there, you have no choice but to have a filter and to be censored to a certain extent. To a certain extent, right? Like I've embraced being myself in that world, and it was kind of like, hey, maybe I'm limiting some paths by doing this, right? But I think that's why the pull to the entrepreneurship game was so strong for me, even 20 years in. Even though, you know, I have a very successful corporate life, the pull was still so strong to be like, hey, this is really a chance for you to explore the real you, and to get out there and do what you're supposed to do. Right?
It's because it's truth. It's higher truth. It's your soul's calling.
The
Rory,
corporate
what are you
world.
thinking over there?
No, there's a lot that's coming
talk,
up. There's a lot.
Let's go.
And I think, I get it. Like the corporate world, you got to put the filter cap on. But if you put the filter cap on, where's the growth mindset?
Right.
How many of these corporations talk about annual sales, annual this, annual that. If you want to scale your business, you can't do it from a fixed reality.
Yeah.
You know that, and
Yeah.
I know that. So why does the corporations do that, right? And it's like, it comes from this element of, oh, it's satisfactory, but you're not gonna grow. You can't. If you're sitting at $2 billion annually per year, how are you gonna get to 4? How are you gonna get to 6? Right? So you got to adapt that growth mindset. And then they wonder, oh, well, stock market may be down. We're not getting the sales. We're not getting the business. We're not getting the partnerships. Well, you got to adapt that growth mindset. And you sometimes got to peel the Band-Aid off. And you got to throw it away. And you got to sometimes, if you have that cut on your arm, you got to let it scab over and it becomes a scar. And guess what? You build a new skin on yourself. You know what I mean? A new shell in the game, things like that. And I see it so many times where it's like, I know you probably get this, where it's like you get that frustration. We're not being demeaning to the corporations, but it's just like, have a different sense of understanding.
Yeah.
If you adopt the entrepreneur mindset, you're going to fail, but you're going to see the success. You have to take chances in this game. The same chances as that when you're on the Monopoly board and you take that card and it says chance, you got to just deal with the outcome and figure it out.
Yeah.
If it's your time to shine, it's your time to shine. But as long as you just go brick by brick by brick, 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
success shows up.
Yeah.
David Goggins said it the best. Success never goes in a straight line.
No, we're not here for that linear growth, right? We're here for exponential. Is there anything you want to add to that? Because I have no experience in the corporate field. The only experience I have is I have a lot of clients who work in corporate.
Yeah.
They're doing very well in their corporate field, and they're doing better because we're implementing a lot of these growth strategies, but they are doing it in like these sneaky ways, which is a whole other conversation. It's like they're very close to the top, but maybe some of them aren't quite at the top. Some of them are the owners of the corporations, but it's like they're implementing all of this growth, all of the mindset, all of the energetics, everything that we do, but they're doing it in a way that they're not going up to their boss and saying, oh yeah, I'm doing hypnotherapy. Oh yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. They're growing, and their boss is seeing the results, but it's like for whatever reason, it's like very taboo to talk about, to want to grow in this way. It's like, it's weirdly taboo in the corporate industry. I don't know why.
From a sports betting standpoint, you hear a lot of guys will talk. Scared money don't make money, so you can't be scared
100%.
with what it is you're trying to offer to the entire world or to your business or to your corporation.
Yeah.
You sometimes got to present an idea. Heck, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Just see what happens.
The reality is most people listening to this work for themselves. Our entrepreneurs, our
1000%.
creators, our business owners. There are a few select that are listening to this that work corporate. And I think I'd love to, like, again, all I can speak to is always the highest truth, the highest love, the highest light. So I don't like to be like, oh, in this environment, fawn and play small. I like to be like, be your biggest, highest self, even if it's going to get you in trouble. Absolutely. But what would you guys say? Because you are kind of straddling both paradigms right now.
So I think there's a couple of things that, as you were both talking, I was thinking of. One, the irony is that when we use this word corporate, the irony is that at some point there was an entrepreneur behind that corporation.
Period. Yes.
that had the idea, that started that organization.
Clip it.
That grew that to a point where it is today. And I don't want to paint every big corporation with the same brush, because I don't think you can, right? I think there are some out there that do a really, really good job at creating environments where you can think entrepreneurially, where you can have that growth mindset, even within all of the framework of the organization. And those are the ones that I would argue they're doing it right.
Yeah.
Right. You're creating an ownership mindset for everyone within kind of the organization.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. The ones that I'm talking about where, hey, you're creating this environment that's stuffy and like you gotta like, you know, you're limited within the confines of, it's almost like these social constructs that you've created, but it's like constructs within the organization where like, hey, you're going to be part of this risk management department or this, you know, HR department. And these are the confines that you have to work within. And these are the things you can say and can't say. And these are the things that you can work on and can't work on. Right. So I think that like when you limit people, then of course they're going to stay limited, right? You put a rat in a box or you put a mouse in a box, well, they're going to be stuck, right? They're going to work with what they got.
It'll just gnaw its way out the box though, eventually.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? So I think that was the one thing that I was kind of thinking about as you guys were talking was the irony of the fact that, hey, all of them started.
Yeah, I
with
love that you mentioned that.
different mindset. But then also the reality of that world. The only other thing that I will say is there are a lot of advantages of starting in the corporate world and then moving into entrepreneurship. Businesses that have grown to that magnitude, they didn't do it out of sheer luck.
Yeah.
They did it because they've got really refined processes. I mean, obviously there's great minds that have put a lot of thought into scalability and all those things. So what I would encourage any of your listeners that are in a world where they're maybe in kind of between, the corporate world and making a jump is embrace all of those elements.
Yeah.
And you can take that with you.
Absolutely.
To the other side, right? So there's a lot of things that we do as a business that, like, even establishing a vision and a mission. Well, who does that the best? Big corporations, right?
Yeah.
Every big corporation has a vision statement, a mission statement, and everybody in theory rallies around that, and that's what helps those organizations grow so dominantly.
100%.
So if you've got 5 people that work for you, if you've got 10 people that work for you, and you don't have a vision or a mission statement, what are they all working for?
Yeah.
Are you confident that they understand what your vision is and like that they're behind it and that you have this collective like drive forward? If you can't answer that question, I would say go out there, and your next meeting should be, hey, let's talk about what our vision and mission statement is as an organization.
The best companies do that well.
For sure.
That's how I lead my team, is when we have our meetings with some of the people, it's weekly, daily, some people it's monthly. It's a shared vision. It's a shared mission. And I workshop a lot with lots of other corporations on bringing that unity. So I'm glad you mentioned it. But for anyone listening who's in business that doesn't have a team yet, I want you to imagine like you have a team of 100 people, and can you clearly elaborate to them, here's our vision, here's our mission, here's why we're doing what we're doing every day. Every action we're taking adds up to that. This is all adding up to that. Every seed is planted to harvest here. Like, can you make those strings and connections?
Yep.
And then you'll grow. What were you going to add, Rory?
I think one of the things I've taken from the corporate world is like email response times. So you have 1 to 2 business days, or you have 3 to 5. So depending on what's going on in the email podcasting world, I always have a rule of thumb. I try to respond back in 1 to 2 business days. And sometimes I'll put that into the email just to leverage myself some time, depending on what I got going on, life be lifing, or it's a 3 to 5. And when I realize that, I'm like, because we deal with a lot of like email templates and stuff like that, I'm like, this makes the most sense. I see why it's there. I see why it's effective.
Yeah.
And then you see how folks actually respond to you because you're on your job. You're on the ball.
Yeah.
And folks start respecting that so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of that communication.
Absolutely.
I know that as I've grown in my business, having an assistant come on and take care of a lot of that stuff, and we can maybe shift gears into this conversation of more growth, mindset growth, business growth. But like, it's hard for any solo entrepreneur listening, it's hard to even imagine growing when you are hitting an upper limit, or you're like blocked for time, or you're at that, you get to this place where you're like, I can't imagine taking more clients. I can't imagine doing more events. I can't imagine more because I'm so burnt out. This is already too much. So that's when it got to that point for me, that's when I was like, okay, I'm hiring and help so that I can get into the CEO role, which is expanded vision. The daily mission being executed by not just me anymore. There's now this expanded vision. Oh yeah, no problem. We can grow more. Okay, I'll have facilitators do that. Okay, I'll write a book so then it's passive. Okay, we'll do an audiobook next. Being able to be like this, you're going to go so much further. So if you're a solo entrepreneur listening, how can you hire help? If you can hire help, okay. What systems and resources and processes can you put in place so that you're supporting yourself, even if it's an automated email, even if it's little automations you can set up, so that you can get back into the mindset of what's possible for me, like thinking like with that expanded vision versus that pigeonholed upper limit block.
Yeah, it's a really, really good topic. That the last Fail Fast, we had a guest speaker come on named Chase McAllister, and Chase is close with Paul and owns an insurance firm called Unreal Studios, or Unreal Media, sorry. And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, you could be the best chef, and you know in your heart's heart that you can cook the best meals, but what do you want to be? Do you want to be the best chef in the restaurant, or do you want to own the restaurant? Mm-hmm. And in order to own the restaurant, you sometimes got to let go of the things even that you're the best at, right?
Yes.
And kind of take your hands off the wheel. And I think that's so important as you scale, right? And you need to ask yourself what's important, right? Do you want to create, a really, really strong side hustle that is giving you some extra income on the side while you kind of balance everything? Or do you want to scale whatever you're doing to a point where it's uber successful? And I think no matter how good you are individually at certain things, you have to delegate really, really well as a CEO, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between not being an entrepreneur and being a CEO, right? You can be both. You can be one or the other, right? The entrepreneurs are usually the vision people.
Yeah.
They're the people that come in with the big ideas. And sometimes you need a CEO. Sometimes you don't need to be both, right? Sometimes you just need someone to run the ship with your vision.
Yeah.
And that's the person that's going to execute the best,
Yeah.
right? And then you go on and you share your vision of other pieces of the organization or of other ventures that will continue to grow that, right? So, that's the thing I would hone in on is you don't have to be everything all at once, right? Is delegate and then understand where your passion is and make sure that you're putting all of your effort into making that a reality and shifting everything else to other people.
Yep. I love that. Delegation is massive. And I know for me, I had to let go of a lot of control. For me, it was like a control thing, and that being able to shift into not being so controlling. But when it's your baby, like you said, your podcast is your baby, right? You just said it, you're all in on it. It's like when you care so much, that's when we tend to be like this. And that's when, guess what? Miracles and flow and abundance stops. But when we're like this, that's when it flows. It's like the veins in our body. So when I was able to take a few edgy months of training people and shifting into that and letting go of a lot of control and getting support and delegating, it was an edgy month or two, but then there was huge influx of flow.
Yeah.
Something you said at the beginning, you talked about the masculine, right?
Yeah.
Energy that you possess to get things done. How do you turn that on and off switch between workflow and now at home being, in your realm and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Where you don't have to be always working.
Well, my audience knows this, and I wanted to actually talk to you guys about that too, because I'm curious hearing a man's perspective on this. For me, it's really simple. I'm in a masculine energy when I'm serving my clients, when I'm producing anything in my business. There's this strong masculine energy of service and giving and devotion and action. When I shift then, and I do this all throughout the day, so it's not a 9-to-5 thing, because that's just not the lifestyle that works for me. It's more I wake up, I'm in really feminine energy with Mitch, with myself, and then it shifts into some client work, and then I'm back in very strong masculine energy, allowing them to be in more of a receptive. And then as soon as it's done with that client, whether it's session or telegramming, I instantly switch into feminine energy. I'm meditating, I'm going to yoga, I'm going on a hike, I'm lying on the couch, I'm having lunch, whatever I'm doing it in a really feminine energy. Oh, and then now it's time to go into more administrative mode, which I don't really do that much of anymore, which is awesome. But back when I was doing it all myself, I would shift into masculine energy. And it's I'm always calling in these energies. I'm hyper-focused masculine mode, let's go. And then I shift into that feminine energy, which is more receiving. So at the end of the day, when Mitch comes home from work, because he works out of the house and I work in the house, my office is in our house. And it's it's so easy. I'm just we're not talking about work. And sometimes we do, at the dinner table, he might say a few things, and he jokes, he calls himself my business manager because he has more of a corporate mindset, and it gives me that perspective, which is great. But I'm often just okay, thank you. And I'm receiving information. And then I'm often all right, let's not anymore. And let's just shift into girly mode, fiance mode. I'm really good at just getting into my feminine energy because I love that polarity and I love that contrast. And I feel I'm as successful as I am because I know when to turn it on and turn it off.
So let me ask you this question. When you're in those modes, when you're turning on, turning off, it sounds like you're describing compartmentalization. That you're really good at compartmentalizing. That when you're with Mitch in the evenings, and this is why it's fascinating to me, can you actually turn off your entrepreneurial brain? Or you just, even when you're with Mitch, are you still thinking about your business and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing? Because that is uber difficult for someone that owns their own business.
Yeah, and that's why I want to chat with you guys about that too, because I know you guys have lives outside of your business. So for many years, it was really hard, and I again am so grateful for that, because I think I wouldn't have built what I built if I didn't have that like insane focus. But now it's pretty easy to switch on and off, and I'm almost the one now who I'm like, okay, can we stop talking about my business? Like, other people want to talk about it a lot, and I'm just like, I just like want to have some wine and like chill the fuck out, and like, and that's a different thing for me. That's honestly a really new thing for me, and I think it's actually really healthy at this stage in my life, because I have the foundations in place that got me there. But yeah, I guess I don't love the word compartmentalization, and that's maybe an edge I need to look at, but I think of it more of like a flow. I'm more just like, oh, I'm effortlessly flowing into masculine mode. And if you ask like my assistant, she always highlights this about me, how wild it is that I can just be like, show up and be like, boom, boom, here's everything we need to do in like this hyper masculine, powerful way. And then be like, okay, let's have champagne and let's talk about this now. And oh, here, okay, let's set an intention. Let's visualize, let's meditate. Like, it's very shocking for people that I don't think own their own feminine and masculine energy, how like the spectrum is intense for me. And that's just who I am. It's all I know. I don't.
It's because it's taboo.
It's different.
Because,
yeah.
It's because it's taboo, because it's, you know, how do I say this? Women can be in their masculine, but it's like how do I say this? Because media me is coming into play here.
Yeah, don't censor yourself.
Yeah, the media positions it in a way where it's bad to be in your women to be in their masculine, because of the polarity of like how that's going to work with a relationship. But if you actually use your entrepreneurial brain, you'll realize is that 99% of the time a woman's going to be in her masculine when it comes down to work. But I love what you just said. When you're with Mitch, your fiance, you know when to turn it off.
Yeah. And in my business, in certain aspects, like if I'm setting intentions and if I'm really focusing on receiving, there's a chapter in my book called The Art of Receiving. If I'm really focusing on like, I'm ready to receive like a divine invitation from, like when I think about back when Gwyneth Paltrow shared my book on her Instagram, I was in a very feminine era, and that was a huge influx of sales for me, a huge big growth thing in my business. When she shared that, if I thought about what I was doing in like the weeks leading up to that, I was at the cottage, I was chilling out, all I was caring about was like being tanned and toned. I was drinking wine, I was exercising, I was like very in a feminine era, and then that amazing thing happened. I think that's why that harmony is so important, especially for female entrepreneurs, which are the majority of our listeners truly, to be in that harmonization. And they know my perspective on this, but I'd like to hear from the two of you just in terms of, well, you've interviewed a lot of female entrepreneurs, which I applaud you for. So if there's anything that maybe you guys have riffed on that's coming through, that would be awesome. And then for you, Joel, I know you have a wife and you have a daughter, right? You have a daughter. So you also it's almost like you're in this masculine energy all the time because you're parenting, you're being a husband, and you're in work. So how do you allow yourself to receive and take care of yourself? And what does that look like? What's the feminine energy looking like for you guys?
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question. One thing that I think is a topic that I think is important, because it is a little bit taboo, is there is this stigma around women with strong male energy that have really dominant personalities. And when you look at, this is really relevant in the corporate world, when you look at women that have like moved up the chain into these like senior management roles, a lot of times people are like, she's a bitch.
Oh yeah.
But you know why? It's because they have that dominant energy. And it's okay for a guy to have it, but when a woman like portrays that energy, it gets misconstrued as they're a bitch, they're insensitive, whatever, they're not approachable, which I don't think is necessarily the case. But what I like about you, and what I think like the women in those roles, in those like advanced CEO roles, should be taking away from this conversation is ebb and flow. Right? You need to 100%. Ebb and flow. You can't just be in that dominant mindset all the time, right?
And that's probably taboo to say, but I think it is unnatural to be.
In 2025, I don't think so anymore. I think a lot more people understand.
People are getting it. People are getting it.
I think what, and I wanted to chime in even back to you and then bring it back, is that the healing journey you got to be on, right? You got to know how to distinguish between femininity and masculinity.
Yeah.
And like I said, 99% of women are going to be in their masculine when they're at work and they're doing tasks and they're doing what they need to do. But when they come home and if they're dating, whatever their sexual preference is, they're going to be in their feminine, right? Someone like myself, it's like you get in conversations all the time with women. That masculine's there and it stays there. I'm not afraid of it, but it's just like, I don't want to just talk about business, entrepreneurship and things like that when I'm trying to get to know who you are.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like when you now are having a conversation with me, I look for those things where it's like, does that light bulb come off? If it stays on, it stays on. But can it come off? Like, can we be like man and woman and things like that? Because from a biology perspective, it's what works.
Yeah.
You can't argue biology.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, and that's right? Like every men are super simple. We, from a primal perspective, we're here because we want to provide, right? And you're not going to provide for someone with dominant energy, right? You're going to provide for someone that needs you for any given purpose. Like you go back in the day, it was like, hey, you need me to go out and like kill the food and do all the dangerous stuff so that you survive and you can make sure the baby's alive, right? That's a very, very primal instinct, right? Well, that instinct continues on in a very like core way. It's like almost hardwired into us, right?
Yeah.
So we almost have to be more like on all the time because like we're like the providers. I'm the dad, I'm the husband, I'm the entrepreneur, right? So I'll answer your question about how do I tap into my feminine energy. I would say with me, the thing that allows me to do that is empathy. So I try in all of my interactions, and especially, with my wife and even with my daughter, is always seeing things from what are they going through? Like what's on the other side? So that I can then cater my response. So it's not always like the hard line male energy. It's the, okay, let me listen to understand what's going on. Let me try to put myself in your shoes and then let's respond. So I think that is how I try to receive the information I'm getting from a place of empathy.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I love how you tied that up.
I like that.
Because I'm in the same sort of perspective. It's like stripping away the masculine and knowing that for me, masculinity means the ability to just listen. Let her be able to come to you and you just listen. Because you know it and I know it. Women love to talk.
I do.
Y'all love to just nothing wrong with it.
Grace to
But here's the thing is, share that information. I'll just listen. Could be on the phone. All right, cool. Could be on FaceTime. Cool. Because you don't know what's going on in the world. But it's like, if you're not doing that, it makes me wonder. I'm wondering, like, are you okay? Because it's like you wanna talk to that person in the early stages of dating, in the if you're boyfriend and girlfriend or you're married or whatever you want. Different stroke for different folks. So when you see that, it's like my gaze is to just shut off that and just listen and just say, hey, listen, I'm here for you to just listen to what's going on, and at the time you want feedback, let me know. Sometimes
that's
you don't.
key. I was going to say.
Sometimes you don't want to solidify.
Are you good at, because I know a lot of men, and Mitch, my fiance, he's amazing for this. But it's also like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want you to fix this. He loves to fix.
Yeah, you got. We all do.
I was going to say,
We're
are you
all
guys
solutions.
the same?
Yes,
I feel like
100%.
that is.
It depends on the situation.
Or you're maybe learning to just listen more, and then, like you said, asking, is it time for feedback?
I learned to ask the question right up front because my natural instinct is let's find a solution.
Yes.
Right?
That's
so
common.
And I would say most men's natural instinct is go find the solution. There's a problem. We got to fix it. So what I've learned to do is to either figure it out really quickly or ask the question. Be like, you want me to just listen right now, or do you want me to provide some solutions?
That's so good.
Right? So for your 3 male listeners, ask those questions.
even
or educate your partner to ask those questions. Like, I love when Mitch will just be like, I'm listening. It's like, that is like the most nourishing thing to feminine energy. And I'm sure to masculine energy, very rarely does Mitch come to me with, it's like he doesn't ever put anything on me, but the very rare time he does, I've learned to just be like, I'm listening. And that is like a gift in itself.
That's what makes her feel safe. I'm listening. And then the other part of it is too, is that sometimes when you all are exhausting the tank, I know the tank ain't empty. It's and I'm like, I feel like there's some more there. And then it starts up again. And I'm like, are you sure you're good?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, what is it you need from me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And the other thing too is, speaking about masculinity from a male's perspective,
Yeah.
check in with your lady and say, how I'm showing up for you. At
Yeah.
least, not all the time. It's not like every day, how am I showing up for you? But like,
Yeah.
when
I
you're
love
sitting
that.
in those moments,
Yeah.
how am I showing up for you? What is it you need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you do that, that adds a sense of like security to her.
Yeah.
The funniest thing
Yes.
about this conversation is I'm actually kind of like the woman at home, and Katrina's like the man, in that I like to talk, right? Like,
Okay.
I like to, vent, or if there's like something that's happening, I want to talk it out. Like, let's talk it out. Let's find a solution. Let's get there. And Katrina's very much like, nah, like the least amount of stuff that we can talk about, the better, right? So it's kind of funny because we're describing male energy, female energy, and I would describe myself as having really strong male energy. But when I'm at home with my wife, I'm like, I embrace my emotions. I'm not like,
Beautiful.
I'm not afraid to talk about like how I feel. I think
Yeah.
that's super important.
Yeah.
Whereas she's like, what the fuck? Like, stop talking to me about this stuff, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
She's funny.
she's
I
like,
love it.
she's like, oh, okay, that's enough. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
And you
right?
guys are just harmonizing each other, and you're just
Yeah.
balancing each other. And
It's like there's yin and yang there,
that's
right?
it. That's
Yeah.
the key, is that there's that harmonization, and people
sure.
are always looking to balance and harmonize
Yeah.
energy. Like
Yeah.
we are always doing it in a conversation. Like, you're always wanting to harmonize. And the last thing we'll say about this, then let's shift gears a little bit, and then I know we got to wrap up soon. But the last thing I'd say on this is, like, with the female entrepreneurs that are listening, I already know, because I have now worked with hundreds of female entrepreneurs, very high performing female entrepreneurs, millionaires, multimillionaires, and beyond. And the common thread is they're in their masculine a lot, and they really want to be in their feminine more. So I always give them the homework of be in that feminine energy at home, because and the ones that are moms, they're in hyper masculine. And Katrina probably knows this, like, it's masculine to be a mom. There's a lot of masculine energy that goes to providing for a child. So any chance you can get, my bet is, if you're listening to this, you probably lean more masculine. Any chance you can get, be in your feminine more. And then if you are one of the rare people listening to this who's like, you know what, actually, I'm in my feminine way too much, and it would feel good for me to harmonize by being more in my masculine, they'll get a lot out of this conversation as well.
They're
Because-
going to ask for you for a part 2, and they're going to probably say, bring Joel and Roy back on.
Yeah.
As far as the
Yeah,
dating
100%.
solution to
Yeah.
find the right man that's going to be able to just shut kind of a lot of that down.
Part 2.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they want part 2.
Well,
Because my mouth might get ahead of myself.
Well, I'm loving this. Before we close out and before we wrap up, like, if they're like kind of how we started, what's your vibe right now? If each of you had a few things that you've really noticed in your own life have been very valuable, whether it's a certain mindset, a certain belief, a certain action or ritual, if there's something that really has supported you that you think our audience could benefit from, I would love to hear that from each of you.
You want to go first?
I can do that, for sure.
Go for it.
You know, I go back to one of my episodes. His name's Dennis Thompson. Shout outs to him. All right, soccer guy. And he said, pay attention and listen. And that hit me last year in 2024 in such a way, because I know that I do it. But it's sometimes you need to have someone to tell you what it is you're thinking out loud. And that happened on a podcast. So what I want to say to everyone is, just pay attention to everything that's going around, your natural surroundings, your friends, your family, and whatever you do for a profession. And then just listen. And sometimes when you're listening then can create to ask questions if you're not sure. And that's really all I can say to sum it up, right?
Wow. I love it.
Well said.
Thank you. What about you, Joel?
Yeah, I had a little bit of an aha moment, I would say about 7-8 months ago. It was actually right around Fail Fast 3, which, Fail Fast 2, which I know you weren't there for,
Yeah.
or you were there. And I actually brought the concept up at Fail Fast 2. So I've always had this sales mindset. And anybody that's in sales, there's these letters that we use. It's ABC. Do you know what it means?
No.
Always be closing.
Okay.
Okay. So
See, I have no idea anything
Yeah.
in corporate.
yeah. So always be closing
Okay.
is like a very, very kind of common saying in the sales game.
Okay.
Right. So what you mean by that is like every interaction, you could be closing a deal, right? Everybody's a potential client, right? So you always want to be in that closing mindset.
Got it.
Right. So I kind of always had that in the back of my mind, always be closing. But then I was like, getting closed on, like getting, like, I don't want to be closed on. That's a yucky feeling, right? So I was like, doesn't really quite jive with who I am as a person. And I woke up at 4:00 in the morning one day. And you ever get those moments where you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain's just going, you have to write something down?
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had one of those moments, and it was like, no, it's not always be closing. It's always be cultivating. And that is what I kind of always lived by, but I never like put it in words.
Love it.
And it's always cultivating relationships, and not necessarily too close, right? So cultivating a relationship with you, right? And it's to, you know, get these conversations going, because you learn out of those conversations. Or, you know, you could cultivate a relationship with, you can go to a coffee shop and you could be like, wow, this person's like such a great personality. I'm going to give them my business card because maybe they could work for me one day.
Yeah.
Right? You're cultivating relationships, right?
Yeah.
So, I think you can cultivate relationships with people that could add value to your organization, could add value to you personally. So mentors, right? Cultivate relationships with mentors. So I try to put everything through the always be cultivating mindset. And the last thing that I'll kind of close with is, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a salesperson, but not all salespeople have to be entrepreneurs. That's why the always be closing doesn't work for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That's why always be cultivating is probably a better moniker to live by.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's,
He's gonna
So
drop
good.
a nuclear warhead on us just like that, eh?
yeah, man,
Yeah.
mic drop. Yeah.
Like, I can't even pick up my phone to be like putting all that in, you know? Like,
You'll just have to rewatch the episode.
there you go. And I'm gonna tell everyone what camera we have. Like, share, subscribe. Haley's podcast.
Yes. Hello, whichever camera we're looking at.
All right. Like, share, subscribe. Haley's podcast.
Uplift Lifestyle Podcast.
And drop a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, comment. Let us know if you liked this, because this is super different than what we usually do. It's not often like two men on the show, and I really like it. I think it's exciting and extremely valuable. So there'll be a full bio and everything, but since we're all here, can you drop your podcast? Can you drop your podcast? I like to say this to anyone I have on the podcast. The first point of connection, like, what is the best place for someone to find you? Don't overwhelm them with a million things. Like, where do you want them to find you? What's your best vibe right now?
You can go to the YouTube Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast, and
Mitchell Report Unleashed.
There's a whole Netflix archive of content that's there.
Oof.
Some
all right.
some important conversations.
Get your popcorn.
And like I said, it's some conversations that will change the landscape of your mindset,
Amazing.
especially what's coming soon. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Thank you.
got you.
Thank you. What about you, Joel?
Yeah, for us, it's simple, at Industry Night Podcast on Instagram. And then you can find us on YouTube and Spotify as well, Industry Night Podcast. And if you're looking for anything kind of events related, it's at Bulle et Bière, BULLESET, BIERES.
Coming in with a little French accent to close it out. I like it.
There you go.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you guys. This was amazing.
Thank you.
So much gratitude, so much love to everything that you two are bringing in the world.
Love it.
you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.